got the idea for today's talk while I was reading an article on a website that I follow. The website is run by UC Berkeley, and it's called the Greater Good Science Project from the Greater Good Science Center. It's really amazing what they're up to. That's the homepage of their website, and as you can see here, they just got done with a big conference on gratitude at work, Spark Gratitude at Work, talking about how experiencing gratitude makes us happier, more effective, and more motivated at work. And of course, they're taking it beyond the work environment too. It's really remarkable. And here's their mission statement. Our mission, the Greater Good Science Center, studies the psychology, sociology, and neuroscience of well-being. Hey, we just spent 7 weeks talking about happiness and well-being, and teaches skills that foster a thriving, resilient, and compassionate society. 2016, they had 5.5 million website visitors, 10 million plus page views. Right? So this is getting out there into the world in a big way, and it all fits in with something that I've been talking about probably for over 15 years now. You would think that when it comes to teaching skills that foster a thriving, resilient, and compassionate society, it would be our religious institutions that would be leading the way. Well, they're not. I've been saying for a long time now, some of the best new ideas about things like gratitude, altruism, happiness, and things like that are coming from our secular universities and the corporate world. So part of my personal mission here at Unity of Auburn is to make sure that we are staying on the leading edge instead of being left behind, which is what's happening in traditional church organizations. Now this article that I mentioned earlier is from an online magazine that the Greater Good Project publishes. And I found it in a section called Big Ideas. And the title was How Gratitude Beats Materialism. The subtitle up there says, New Studies Reveal How to Deliberately Cultivate Gratitude in Ways That Counter Materialism and Its Negative Effects. We're going to talk about those negative effects here in just a little bit. And this really seemed like a good topic for right now, because Thanksgiving is over, right? We're still in Thanksgiving weekend, and we're segueing into the Christmas season. And there are lots of people who like to criticize and complain about Christmas as being too materialistic. I'm not one of them. But it's something we seem to hear every single year. Christmas is too materialistic. It's too religious. It's not religious enough. Don't say happy holidays, say Merry Christmas. Starbucks cups are evil, and so on and so forth. And every year I have the same reaction. I want to tell them to stop it already, to lighten up, and just enjoy the music and the lights without turning Christmas into a big problem. Christmas is whatever we want to make of it. If it seems too materialistic and we want to do something about it other than complain and kvetch, the first place we start is right here, right where we are. It always starts as an inside job. And maybe, just maybe, one of the first questions we should ask is, what exactly is materialism? According to this article, it was back in the 1990s when scientists first decided to try to actually measure materialism. There were two scientists in particular, Marcia Richins and Scott Dawson, who developed a scale that was based on a set of questions, and then they came up with a definition of materialism based on their research, and here it is. People are materialistic to the extent that they place acquiring possessions at the center of their lives, judge success by the number and quality of one's possessions, and see these possessions as vital to happiness. So that's what real materialism is all about, the toxic variety. It has little to do with Christmas. It's a year-round problem. Some people think Christmas tends to amplify it. I disagree. People are out there buying stuff, but they're buying it to give away. This is not the classic example of materialism. And if we're really concerned about materialism, then we need to look at this description and see if it fits. It's another self-awareness checklist. I've given you this checklist in your bulletin and the handout in there. You can look at these three factors and use a scale of 0 to 10. How does this description apply to me on a scale of 0 to 10? A whole lot? Not at all? Or, as I suspect a lot of us are, somewhere in between. So this article is about using gratitude as an antidote for materialism. And even if we don't personally identify at all with this description of materialism, we can still practice the antidote for the benefit of the people around us who might be more materialistic. Now this isn't a judging game. This isn't about labeling other people. We really don't need to know where they fall on the scale or try to place somebody on the scale of materialism. What the article is suggesting is that we deliberately cultivate gratitude and lead by example so that we're creating an atmosphere that is less conducive to extreme materialism. We're part of the solution even if we don't think we're part of the problem. That's the best way to bring about change, to be a part of the solution, to lead by example. And the reason it's important, something I mentioned earlier, is that there are significant negative effects that are associated with materialism. This came out of the research that they were doing. Here's some of the findings. People who score high on Drs. Richens and Dawson's scale score lower on just about every major scale that scientists use to measure happiness. More materialistic people feel less satisfied both with their lives as a whole and with the amount of fun and enjoyment they get out of day-to-day life. All right? That doesn't sound too good. Here's another thing. Materialistic people experience more negative emotion, such as fear, sadness, and other things. More negative emotion, less positive emotion, and less meaning in their lives. Less meaning in their lives. Time for a Calvin and Hobbes cartoon. That is right on point. Calvin and his famous snowmen. Hobbes is looking at the snowman and he's saying, this snowman doesn't look very happy. And Calvin agrees. He said, he's not. Calvin explains, he knows it's just a matter of time before he melts. The sun ignores his entreaties. He feels his existence is meaningless. And Hobbes says, is it? And Calvin says, nope, he's about to buy a big screen TV. The snowman is. How does Calvin think that you fill that empty place of meaninglessness in your life? How do we fill that void with more stuff, right? That's one of the messages that we get. That's one of the aspects of toxic materialism. Okay, one more final negative aspect. I think this one might be the most important. More materialistic people report particularly low levels of gratitude. They did a follow-up study, several of them actually, and they learned that as materialism increases, feelings of gratitude and life satisfaction decrease. Further analysis revealed that materialists feel less satisfied with their lives because they were experiencing less gratitude. So what they concluded from this is that gratitude and materialism are opposing forces in the mind. There's another big name in the field of gratitude studies. This one is from UC Davis. We really do. We've got quite a remarkable bunch of research going on in this region. Dr. Robert Emmons is a psychology professor at UC Davis. He thinks the reason that gratitude and materialism are opposing forces is because gratitude is almost always focused on the present moment. when we're looking at and appreciating something, it's usually something that is before us right now. So it focuses on the present moment, whereas materialism focuses on the future, focuses on something that we're looking for. What we have now isn't enough. It's the acquisition of more stuff in the future that will improve our lives. And once the new thing is acquired, then it's on to the next thing, and so on and so on. Materialism is focused on the outer, on the future, and the reality somehow never quite matches the expectation. I think we've all tasted that from time to time. That's why they coined the term buyer's remorse, right? It's kind of like this guy here in the next slide. Let's see if I got him. Yes, there he is, standing on a mountain of stuff, and he says, I'm still not happy. He's still looking for the next shiny object to come along. Dr. Emmons says that materialism is a trap. Here's what he says. He says, research suggests that materialistic people have unrealistically high expectations for the amount of happiness material goods will bring them. When those expectations inevitably go unmet, they invest their hopes for happiness in the next thing and the thing after that, and on in a fruitless pursuit. And again, even if we aren't personally caught in that trap, we can help others by being role models for practicing gratitude. That's one of the best ways to reach people. Karen is an excellent role model. She's really good at gratitude. And each one of us here can serve as a role model or as an example for others, which can help to break that cycle. We don't have to fix them. It doesn't work anyway. Now, before I get into the next topic here, I do want to give credit to a true pioneer in the practice of gratitude. I said earlier that religious institutions were no longer leading the way in this area, but there is one major exception that I need to mention in the interest of being clear and thorough here. You know this guy, I've talked about him many times. That's Brother David Stendal-Rast, who is a Benedictine monk, and he was one of the earliest and is still one of the best resources on the subject of gratitude. I've talked about him in the past. I'll continue to do so in the future. But today, I want to expand the horizon to make sure that we're also aware of how the field is rapidly growing, thanks in large part to the pioneering work that Brother David did. So in the time we have left, I want to get into some practical strategies for cultivating gratitude, and they call these the 5 habits of highly grateful people. Actually, there's 7, but I only had time for 5 this morning, so we'll do the 5 biggies, and you can find the article and read the rest of them if you want to. But here's number 1, highly grateful people. Once in a while, they think about death and loss. This really ties in nicely with what we were talking about last weekend when we wrapped up our 7-week series, talking about happiness and life and death. What we said was that we don't want to dwell on death, and yet we want to maintain a healthy awareness of the fragility of existence. Gratitude always increases the more we accept the reality of impermanence. The research they did on this subject showed that when people would contemplate the absence of something or someone they loved, their feelings of gratitude for them would increase when they did that. Which I guess goes to show you, the old saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Absence makes the heart grow fonder and more grateful. It's true. Number 2, highly grateful people take the time to smell the roses, and they also smell the coffee and the bread baking in the oven and the aroma of a new car, whatever gives them pleasure. A study they did at Loyola University shows that savoring positive experiences makes them stick in our memory banks. And in addition, they actually increase in magnitude. They don't just stay there, but they grow. There's that word appreciation that we hear a lot. Appreciation means 2 things. The first meaning is that it means to enjoy something good. And it can also mean to increase in value. So the truth is that what we appreciate will appreciate. Charles Fillmore said something similar, our co-founder in Unity. Charles Fillmore recognized that he wrote that it has been found by experience that a person increases his blessings by being grateful for what he has. It's like that song we opened with today, Count Your Blessings. All right, number 3. Highly grateful people take good things as gifts, not birthrights. The opposite of gratitude is entitlement, which is defined as the attitude that people owe you something just because you're so very special. Entitlement, based on this idea that we're so very special, is the product of an overactive ego. It tells us that we are preoccupied with ourselves, with our specialness, and that can get in the way of gratitude. So we get that out of the way and we can become one of those highly grateful people. All right, number 4. I like this one. They mentioned the pancakes. What the heck does that mean? Well, here's what they're getting at. Grateful people are habitually specific. They don't say, I love you because you're so wonderfully wonderful. Instead, the really skilled, grateful person will say, I love you for the pancakes you make when you see I'm hungry. Now, they could have just said that highly grateful people are habitually specific. That's pretty boring, though, isn't it? It's way more fun to say that they mention the pancakes, and then you got to figure out what that means. And it means to be as specific as possible because it shows that there's some depth of thought involved. It comes across as more authentic. So gratitude thrives on specificity. Finally, number 5. They thank outside the box. Another little clever play on words. And this is where it starts to move from intermediate to advanced gratitude. Highly grateful people have learned how to be grateful even in the face of misfortune and loss. Dr. Emmons tells us that in these situations, gratitude becomes a critical cognitive process, a way of thinking about the world that can help us turn disaster into a stepping stone. If we're willing and able to look, we can find a reason to feel grateful even to people who have harmed us. This is advanced stuff. Doesn't mean we have to go out there right away and do it. It's enough to just see the possibility that gratitude can be a way to get through the hard times, that there are people who are able to do that. And again, we learn from their example. Now, Dr. Emmons actually wrote an entire article on the subject of gratitude and dealing with hard times. You can read it online. We've given you the link in your handout. And in closing, I know that there are people who feel as if Thanksgiving gets drowned out by Christmas, and it doesn't have to be that way. Here we are, we're 3 days past Thanksgiving Day, but if the day meant anything, then this is an example of how we can keep it alive into the new year, and preferably beyond, to help to buffer the ongoing effects, the ongoing negative effects of a materialistic culture. And the good news is that we don't have to get caught up in it, that we can actually do something positive about it instead of just complaining. Now, we are going to get together after the service to have our little discussion group that we were going to meet last week to wrap up our 7-week series. We had our Thanksgiving potluck instead, but we're going to do that today at 11:30, right after the service. And of course, if we want to talk about our topic for today, that is certainly on the table as well. So see you next week. Thank you.